Welcome to the Curator Chats at the OSU Museum of Art. This is a new series that will feature conversations about works in the museum's collection. My name is Arlette, Klaric, and I'm the Associate Chief Curator and Curator of Collections.
My name is Christina, Elliott, and I am the Associate Curator of Education here at the museum. Today, to kick off these discussions, we wanted to talk about two works that are both bewildering in their own ways. And so we're going to take a little bit of a longer look at this work by Jean Dubuffet, as well as another by Kiki Smith. To start off with, this Dubuffet is titled Year of Perplexities. It's part of the Gardiner Collection here at the OSU Permanent Collection, and was created in 1959. It was also the inspiration for this month's community pickup kit. And so you'll see our October pickup kit for Second Saturday that we are offering for free to the community all month is a monster-themed kit. So contact us if you're interested in grabbing one of those. And it was really inspired by this Dubuffet. So Jean Dubuffet was a French artist who said, well, art should make us laugh a little, frighten us a little, but never bore us. And so this work certainly encompasses all of those aspects. Jean Dubuffet was incredibly anti-academy and against traditional thinking. So he wanted to explore new realms of creativity and would often look to outsider art, including the art of children, for inspiration. So we thought this would be a good Halloween pick to help encourage everyone to use their creativity this season. Before we get right into this work, what do you think this character looks like? Does it remind you of anything?
Oh, absolutely. I think he's a relative of the Cookie Monster on Sesame Street.
I think in my notes I had put down a Lana Gravure, and so yeah, we're both thinking along the same Muppets line of thought. He certainly has a quite animated character. He seems kind of wild and unkempt. We see this figure here. We can tell that it is sort of a figural form, but it is not realistic in any way. It is quite creative in its expressive qualities. So this work, Year of Perplexities, actually illustrates a man with a wildly creative beard. He also has an accompanying mustache that's, I sometimes like to see as a big smile. We see he's got sort of a more demure look on his face under his mustache. And so Dubuffet had written to a friend, quote, "I'm trying my hand at painting beards. I would like to paint a series of vast, cosmic, mystic beards." And so he took this idea and really extended it. Not only did he create this work, Year of Perplexities, it is actually part of a larger series. So he did an entire series of collages based on men with beards. He also created a set of prints called the Fleur de Barbe, or flower beard in French. And he also wrote an experimental song, musical composition under the same title. An experimental song all about beards. So we see that the texture on this lithograph is quite different in different sections of the work. That's because this is a print that is based off of a collage. And so these collages would use multiple items like pen and ink, crinkled paper, and found materials in order to create these compositions. And so we see here this whole series of work based on beards, which I think is kind of fascinating and a little bit humorous in its own right, because we know that Dubuffet was very anti-tradition. And if we look at how the way beards are traditionally depicted in the canon of art history, they're often depicted on very serious figures. They're very stoic. We see them on military leaders, emperors, Greco-Roman gods in mythology. I bet you could list others as well, Arlette. sturdy.
Yes, it also reminds me sometimes of the contests they have today for different categories of beers. You see it on television.
Yes, there's also futuristic beards, steampunk beards, all kinds of creativity and facial hairstylings going on throughout all the centuries and millennia. During this time, in the late 1950s, when Dubuffet created the work, there was actually a resurgence in beards. We saw beatniks and hippies bring beards back into vogue during the 1950s and the 1960s. And just like Dubuffet's beards, their beards were also a little anti-establishment. And so we see this sort of wild-natured beard also reflect the times that Dubuffet was creating in. So lots of, maybe we'll see some monsters out there submitted into our social media page for community pickup kits with just as wild and creative beards. So we started with Dubuffet and ended up exploring a trope that's often linked to masculinity. And in your studies with Kiki Smith, we see another theme, but linked to some of the stereotypes and ideas surrounding femininity.
Yes, yes. My choice for today was this photogravure, which is a kind of photograph by Kiki Smith, who's a leading contemporary American artist who works with sculpture and works on paper and is known for her feminist subjects. This particular series, this particular work is one of 5 called Out of the Woods, and we received it in 2017 as a gift, as part of a gift of 7 from some very generous donors at the time that we had organized and were showing an exhibition on Kiki Smith's works on paper, and we also produced a catalog on that occasion. If you're interested in knowing more about Kiki Smith after this discussion today, please feel free to stop by the museum and pick up a copy of the exhibition catalog. When you look at the text below, you will find that the subject is identified for you. It is a witch. And whenever I look at art, I like to ask what may seem like very obvious questions, but often can lead to more questions. And in this instance, me going to read up on witches. I immediately have thought, of course, of the Halloween character, which is a staple, but also the Wizard of Oz and the fact that the witches in there are both good and evil. When I did dig deeper, I found that witches have a long and complex history that leads us around the world and into the ancient past. In general, we know that they are, in fact, an invention of the mind, just as much as our gods and goddesses are. That they also have supernatural powers to control people and events, and that they're used to explain the inexplicable. Most often, they take form as human figures, and in the West, which is what we're going to focus on, they're associated with evil and stereotypically shown as women. Women who meet secretly in the night, who perform rituals with the devil, and also practice black magic. Historically, the time of highest belief in witches was between the 1300s and 1700s, the period of the Protestant Reformation and the Baroque Counter-Reformation, when the fear of the devil and the concern about heresy were highest. This led to witch hunts to identify such individuals who could at times be punished or even put to death. And of course, our familiar example here in the United States is the Salem witch hunts in Massachusetts. With increasing scientific knowledge and also, they're associated with the practice of religion rooted in pre-Christian European traditions. In the last couple of centuries or so, if you look through various visual images, you'll see that they range from these craggy elderly women to beautiful young ladies, always with standard garb, black cloak, pointed hat, and broom in hand. So let's look at Kiki Smith's image now. We see her representation as a deformed, aging beauty with a large head, a stunted body, and gnarled hands. She's alone in the dark. And we see her at a moment of high drama. The text reads, "Still moonlight, a witch alone haunts the dark. She's been touched." And it is that moment of touching as she looks upward at something large but unseen. The spotlight hits her and she shrinks. And it's done with, as I said, a photogravure with photographic techniques. And it's an interesting choice, don't you think, Christina?
Yeah, especially since Kiki Smith also works within drawing and painting as well. So she had multiple mediums to choose from. Why choose a photograph and a black and white photograph at that?
Yes. Why is it? And that, we think, has to do with the fact that photography is associated with the truth, with documenting, which is very ironic since essentially we are looking at what is a fictional character. And we said dramatic, but there's really a melodramatic quality about this. And it reminded me of black and white silent films from the 20s, and specifically German expressionist examples like Dr. Caligari. And in these films, the actors and actresses rely heavily on facial expressions, body poses, and gestures, hand gestures, to convey the story, as we see here. We see the witch here in a compromised state. She is as frightened as she is frightening, and as vulnerable as she is powerful. And this is part of Kiki Smith's view of women in these states of power and vulnerability. Her work is female-centered, as we see here, focusing on the female human condition and the female body. And she favors subjects from the Bible, folklore, and fairy tales, as we see here. Kiki Smith has added another layer of meaning to this, in not only inventing a witch, but inventing herself as the witch, because in fact, she is the witch here. This is the self-portrait. So, when you are putting on your costume this Halloween, think about why you chose the costume you chose, what it means in terms of identity, and why you like to masquerade.
I think some of my favorite costumes are funny, and so the costumes that are hybrids, costumes that are based on puns, have become incredibly popular. And so I think one of the favorites that I've seen is David Bowie Scout, and so it was a Boy Scout uniform, but David Bowie on the top.
Well, I'm always interested to see what the events of the past year will inspire for costumes as well.
That's right. I remember that year where a lot of people went as women, binders of women. You remember that? I might be aging myself a little bit. That was also a political year.
Yeah.
What are your favorite witches from like popular culture? TV
Oh,
movies?
I think I'll go back a little bit further and I'll say that the Wizard of Oz, which
Yeah, based on the same storyline. It's like a prequel.
Yeah. They are everywhere.
Yeah, I'd have to say some of my favorite witches are definitely the baddies, like Nancy from The Craft, which has good and bad witches. I just happen to like the bad ones better. As well as the Sanderson sisters from Hocus Pocus. And so it's always a little fun, at least, to pretend to be mischievous on Halloween.
You know, to be something you're not otherwise.
Exactly.
And not to be recognized hopefully out of that.
Be disguised. Well, we hope that this will inspire some creativity, mystery, and wonder this October for your Halloween season. Be sure to check out our website, museum.okstate.edu, as well as all of our social media platforms for more information on this series, as well as all of the other great programming that we